it's a lot to talk, and I know that we've spent. Well, actually, we went. No, we're pretty much on time. We went 40 minutes above. Normally, we should have been 5 hours. It went to 6, including, of course, the presentation. But I think this is a very important moment to, also summarize this last section. I'm going to ask Rob and David to basically start the conversation. And Alejandro had a train, and so he had to leave because, of course, we took too long. So he's not joining the panel. But because I mentioned him because I had mentioned that Alejandro was going to be in the panel. So David he said, "I'll do it."
No, I didn't.
So who was raising a hand? Please, I said, up to you. Just what your assessment, and hopefully we'll just have a small conversation, short. We're going to try to keep it short. But yes. So please, I don't know.
So first let me open up by saying I met most of the guys doing the presentations have a little bit of a cold, so bear with me, about 2 years ago. And it's incredible to see them rise to where they are now. They were 2 years ago, they were all freaking out, I can't do this,
They're still freaking out.
Well, they're still coming. Absolutely, but to see them at this place is truly incredible. And, I've been through some of those bumps in the roads with them, but, it's been a lot of fun and it's been incredible watching them grow. So I just want to say congratulations to all of you, even the presentations today and the last couple of days you guys were dynamite. The thing that resonated for me was the tie of education in the last presentations, and I'm wondering how much, and I was talking to Anna about this, how much folks on the ground in Ecuador reach outside of Ecuador for support and understanding. And what I mean by that is, I think, and obviously the MST influenced a lot of their responses here, and there's some ties to the MST in the room. But in Brazil, they use something called Formação, formation, to bring people to a collective point before they move forward, right? And I think some of you mentioned that, and I'm wondering how much here they use that, or they use education as a whole to say, work is a part of the system, we have to bring everybody together to move forward. I don't know if I see that here like I do in Brazil. And I understand Brazil is in a much different place, so any of you can jump into that. I don't know if you've seen that come across, particularly you were talking about schools, Ms. Zoom, and your idea, and that MST school is central, not only to the MST, to all the social movements. And that's where the Formação comes in, the formation, where everybody has to be at the same place before they move forward.
I think even in schools in Ecuador, the kind of schools that Korea is promoting, for instance, they follow a very Eurocentric, very westernized model of how they want that, almost model really, just saying that it's intercultural doesn't make it anything else. So in fact, you're moving away from that system instead of kind of moving towards it because of many historical issues, but also because I think the kind of like I said, these structural policies that are working towards discouraging the kind of schools of knowledge that are trying to develop that. Like Konai had a school that was developing exactly that, and they took all their funding away and they shut it down. They had all these small schools that are there. They're doing it to some extent, but they can't survive in the kind of future that's being promoted.
I would like to say that when we went to Ecuador, one thing that really struck, we were really surprised was the level of politicization within society, at levels that even like social layers that you wouldn't think that they were that politicized. And actually, I think that it transcends economics. It transcends. It really went like a transcalar or social politicization. And for instance, I don't know, there were many neighborhoods that were like totally detached from the communal reality, but at the same time they were applying all these like open assemblies or like organizational forms, like communal forms like the Cabildo, they were applying it and taking it from the commune. So there is kind of a transfer of knowledge already happening, unconscious somehow, and that was really surprising when we really started like actually like a lot. I mean, it's something that you don't find here, that kind of level of organization.
Yeah, I mean, I can't let the occasion go without saying the incredible privilege to work with these kids. Even Miguel as a kid. and I just want to thank them immensely, and I think Miguel, of course, has been fantastic through all of this, and in Ecuador, I mean, people like Anna and Luis and all the others in Ecuador, been a fantastic experience, and it's great that this could happen. And I agree with Rob, the quality of the work and the thinking is good. And what I think is very, very beautiful, I shouldn't use beautiful because that's what Trump says all the time. What's good about it is that there's a good way in which this thinking at all kinds of levels, it goes from the very abstract and theoretical and brings it down to ground. I love that kind of way in which things have been working in general. And of course it does inspire sort of thinking about real practical sorts of things. And I was talking to somebody the other day who set up a culinary school to teach kids skills in restaurant and cooking and food. And one of the things that's commonality throughout many of these things is food. And I wonder what would happen if in the market the culinary school wasn't developed, which could train people and as an employment, and at the same time it may be a way of rescuing or inventing kind of traditional dishes at the same time. But he was sort of saying, well, we want, most of us want to get away from traditional dishes, but you can invent new ones. So there are practical things, and I think everybody here has, I think, come up with some very, very practical, small things. And I like very much also the atmosphere of it, which is, I've been accused of being a friendly colonialist or something, or a colonizer or something. But I think that there is this dialogical way of working, which I think to be very sort of impressed by. And in a funny sort of way, I think in that spirit, rather than asking questions, I'd ask the people here, including some of those in the audience too, sort of, what have you really learned out of all of this? What do you feel the most important thing is that you've learned out of all of this? So that, if we do this again, can we do it even better? People involved, including some of those who talked. So what do you learn? Apart from how to stay up late at night and work that crazy.
Here we go, and stretch you out.
I definitely learned you can sleep on these floors much longer than you think you can. But, I mean, for me, my background is in anthropology and environmental studies more so than design, so this whole program has been kind of a certain experience. Both Gomar and Miguel know probably better than anyone sort of how much I had to be pulled over the line from anthropology to proposal. I really, really didn't want to go there. Although, of course, I wasn't happy, and working with Gomar always makes that easier. But kind of letting yourself make those logical leaps, or not logical, illogical leaps, I guess. It's like letting yourself kind of, I don't know, take that risk into something that feels scary, especially
Zavalice. Yes, let's do a workshop. I've come from a very practical background. And I think in practical ways. Let's make a movie to represent. And I leave the theoretical things to take. And then I think, first of all, not to work on this individually was the most important thing I learned. And then to see how us two working together, and then us being in a group of 7, I think that was the strength of this project. It's we have a funny hashtag with Tate is individual work is a neoliberal fantasy. We keep joking with this hashtag, so that's one thing I learned. And I think also, and I think to learn tools as well. You know, I, for one, don't necessarily care that much about being called a friendly colonizer, because I think if you push for doing something, it has its value as well. So I think they kind of balance this idea of how do you be practical and yet not be called a friendly colonizer. So I'm rambling, but again, group work, teamwork.
I don't know, I think like for me, like all this experience of the program, and especially this last part of the thesis and Ecuador, like define me like the practices I would like to continue developing and take it further. And especially because we were taking out to field work to connect with real people, and we have like this connection with organizations that I don't know, I think like there's another way to actually do like design. Whatever that means.
Were there any bad moments to this? Tough times? And guys, be honest, because you know I walked in this room one day and I said, what the hell is wrong in here? So,
It's true.
that's right? I walked right in and said, what's wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are some, they're not bad, but they're educational in the sense that, words in not in our program, but even in the field of design in general and urban practice, words like participation, collaboration, consent, everything's just thrown around so loosely. Like, yes, let's have a participatory project and let's get everyone on the table. It's so difficult. It's very difficult. It's just, it takes up 100% of you, of the others. So you have to be, like, what are you demanding from people and what are you going to give them? You have to be conscious of that stuff and totally aware of it. I think it's, that's an incredible learning experience, and it's difficult, but it puts you on the ground, it teaches you how to use those words.
Right? You're one of those people that wear your feelings on your face.
Wow, yeah, that's true. I think, because I was one of the theory students, and you typically were not supposed to be in the studio. Theory and the studio are separate. No. But I think, me and Saskia working together in that first phase was so critical and important to do that kind of, co-create or co-curate some kind of framework. And then for me, it was this constant feeling like, what is my contribution? I'm not, I had this, you're talking about action, and you all remember me being like, well, I'm just writing, and I'm just thinking, but it's not, I guess the learning experience for me is that is actionable. It must be actionable, and that everyone can have a different contribution, and that you just have to, push yourself, yes, and push yourself maybe over that limit, but that theory and practice are always mutually reinforcing and informing, coming to terms with, where I sit in response to a design, or with respect to a design school, and what design means, but also getting completely away from that. I think we've all had to maybe reconcile with that a little bit.
You're on the spot.
By the way, we joined just because it felt like this was a collective conversation.
Absolutely.
We're not trying to.
No.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
David invited you all up. He said, everybody who participated, come on up. So.
Just briefly, my struggle was the design. I don't come from a design background, and I come from a political science and geography background. So for me to figure out how to visualize and communicate was my biggest struggle, and it took me months, over a month, to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. Crying to me down, being like, what is this? But really deconstructing something so complex, and how do you communicate that? And it is it's a tough skill. You can't, like, you're supposed to propose something, and we have to, to critique and analyze is a comfortable space, and that's a space that I've always been in within paper writing and debates. But to be able to get out of that space and as informs a sort of future urban practice, this is a really safe space to practice that, and to be able to propose that information when there's so much that you need to summarize, but then give it, pass it on to someone else. That's a whole other skill level, and I'm so glad I was able to do that with these guys through their really incredible design background and Miguel's eye to push me through that. Something that was something that I can now take forward and figure out how do you continue with more pedagogical tools in order to be able to talk about a certain political and economic situation. That knowledge needs to be passed on, and this is what my role in the future urban practitioner is now start figuring out ways to do it.
I have to say, also, the standard of presentation is incredible. It really was fantastic. You all managed to communicate extremely well. So well, I didn't nod off once all day. and when you're my age, that's quite an achievement. You have to keep you awake. I mean, it really was a remarkable day of presentation. Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
This, I think we have had an amazing week in the urban programs. The Tuesday started with presentations, also thesis presentations. Yesterday we had presentations. Tomorrow we have more presentations. And I cannot feel more. I know it's hard to say that I'm never satisfied, but there's a level of satisfaction in the sense that after seeing yesterday's and Tuesday's presentations, and I'm sure what we're going to see tomorrow in the charge of bill, we're going to go on for 11 hours. I feel so happy that the culture of the programs is here. And whatever we tried, when we started this venture, it's been taken by them. And for me, this is unbelievable. I mean, like, they are the ones leading that. I was just, saying that. You have 5 minutes left or something like that. But there is something quite special. I can see quite special happening in this room and with this generation and with what we're about to see in these days and we have seen. And you asked what I learned. What I learned is that I'm learning more than what I thought. No, a lot of this process was guided by them, and it's just listening to their need, to their wants and needs, to their desires, to their passions, right? And opening it all more towards what because yes, I'm a kid, I understand too. Yes, I understand, but they're even it just gives me hope, and all of you yesterday, the day before, and I'm sure tomorrow, it's just more hope and hope, which I thought I had lost because of Obama. Yeah. Well, he said, it was his campaign. Anyway, Lucas, please.
Okay. First, I want to apologize for my English. Right now, I'm so tired. But I want to thank you for all of your work. It's amazing. I've traveled all the night to get here, and I'm really amazed with what I saw. And I think it's going to be very useful for our work there, for the Frente and for the Redes Saberes. I've been trying to write something to say to you, but I think I can't. Because I want to let you know how the Frente is going on right now, how they and we are working, because when we did this workshop, we learned lots of things, and we started thinking about the Frente as organization, but not trying to develop activities or do some things. And instead they start a diagnosis of what the organization was. The friend is an organization, and they made a diagnosis, a self-diagnosis, and they get to know that they know what they are, because they have been 13 years an organization, and they recognize themselves as a group of friends, but they have lots of difficulties to know what the friend is for. No, when they can realize who they are, but they have this problem in say to themselves what for is the friend. You know, they have lost the trail of what it was 13 years ago. They have spent many years like not without a renewal of their leaders, no. And they started to think about this problem, no. And they now have settled like 3 strategies to work with, no. And one of these strategies is to look inside themselves and try to like strengthen the organization and learn new tools to empower the work inside the frente. They also develop a second strategy that is like how they can better connect with the grassroots, because they have lost this connection, because they have been many years like being like this authoritarian leadership, no? And they are like starting to think that they need to recuperate, to get back to the trend that the grassroots was leading, and the leaders were like representing the grassroots, no? And also they have been thinking in this third strategy, that is to grow their struggle with these alliances, with this in a similar way that you have been presenting. No? They are starting to think more deeply, you know, how to connect with the neighborhood, how to connect with the schools around them, and this kind of like local strategy, and they're starting to think about how to connect with the other markets. So when I came here and I realized that your projects can fit in this strategy and can like support them, I really amazed. I know we have been working all together, and it's a result of that. But I think we must carry on sitting down and talking about this and sharing these things, and I think you can give a lot to this organization. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just, it's Lucas, right?
Lucas.
So Lucas, I just want to respond to that. These projects can connect a lot of different things. And Miguel and I were sitting together Tuesday. We're working together with a group called International Alliance of Inhabitants. We've been working for a while, and they're trying to figure out an international strategy of resistance. And we saw a presentation from one of the students on Tuesday, and we go, there it is, right there in a PowerPoint presentation. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So these projects can fit so many different places, and there's a lot of synergy in this room that is coming from a lot of different directions that can make those connections.
Can I play with your time a little bit? I can't help. That what I saw actually through all of this and many of the projects, and having worked for a while on gerrymandering boundary, political boundary, which is a good exercise to reflect on this, is that the students and all of this work has not just resistance, but showed that these spaces are occupied. And I think this is a question of occupation, not resistance. And I think that resistance once puts me outside the line. What I thought was interesting in the beginning, and through Massoum and Mateo's base map, is that no one remembered where their comunas was, not so much their boundary, but who they were and where they were in the space, right? And where they were in the space with each other in this huge room. And I think it was interesting. I just wanted to keep, by the end, I wanted to end up with that painting that you showed me of the vernacular painted, the Tika paintings, where it's all completely full, and the birds were like what I call theorists, which were these hybrid creaky people flying around. I love them, totally wanted to be one. And so, you know, when I got done with this, all of those dots and lines that seemed to be emptied out or occupied, because the argument is to say it's underutilized, under argument. And I think the resistance is the fact that the place is occupied. We're here. And there's, I think, a different riff than that is ultimate resistance. That why destroy the asset that's already accumulation of wealth and other things out and not do it. So this, I think, is a really, they showed a different way, and that was it's completely occupied. An empty school is occupied, the communist is occupied, you know, the market is occupied. Anna and I did come up with a title for San Roque Market to change the brand. The public market of unbranded experiences. So, yes, Anna.
Only about the education and Rob's question. I think this is perhaps one thing that is in all the experiences and dialogues. This thing that is perhaps not as in Brazil, as in Freire, but very important in Ecuador and the Andean region, in Colombia, in Peru and Bolivia. This experience of radio, communitary popular radio, and what we call popular education, that from the 50s to the 90s was the first and most important element in the cohesion of the rural indigenous territories of peasants, that the way they organized themselves after the communitary, what remained from the Ayllu, was to go and learn how to write, learn Spanish and how to write, and this place for the radio to go and listen to the Spanish classes was the point of being together, organize themselves, and have a Quechua space to be together even if the territories were dispersed. So I think this tradition of popular education is in the base of the first intercultural movement of intercultural bilingual education, and then for sure in the basis of the organization during the 80s and the most neoliberal period for the CONAIE and the indigenous revolt in '92 that completely changed politics in Ecuador. So what you ask is perhaps not as the same way as in Brazil, not the same methodology, but as important as in Brazil for the organization of people and indigenous and peasants in the lands. And perhaps this also makes us something that I was thinking when I was listening to Mateo and Maria, is that I think we need to think in historic cuts of some things. For example, when you see now Santa Clara de San Millán is a urban comuna that is already completely urbanized and it's in the middle of the city, and you see what is happening in Ilaló. They are not in the same conditions in dialogue, and also the public policies and the laws need to be compared what happened with which laws in the 80s, in the 90s, what happened to these comunas, what is the relationship between what is happening in the terms of the COTAD and the actual constitution in Tobla, and what are these instruments. Because I think if we don't do these historical cuts, we are in the risk. It's almost dangerous think that to make an analysis as a pure present, because the pushing, it's like you say, global, and perhaps these historical cuts in the growing of the urbanization process make us think what is the relation between the normative, the social and political processes, and the tools they have to fight. Because anyway, we cannot romanticize, let's say, a place of 500 hectares with 80 families living there. We want to fight for it, but we also need to think what is going to happen with territories like that. What we need to, in which way we needed to transform, like a collective transformation. So I think this was great. So I wanted to say, like, felicitación de todo corazón, and thank you for making us part of this. It was like, I think we need to continue Habitat and all the stuff, and we are going to be there to work.
One or two last things and then we'll party.
No, party.
No one wants to say anything?
Oh, no.
I'll just,
Now we can part.
quick congratulations to Miguel and Gabriella and Bill and a bunch of folks involved in this program. I remember about 3 years ago being here, challenging them to have a relationship with the community and make this a reciprocal way of working. And it looks like he took that baton and ran with it, constantly pushing students out into the community, bringing the community into the classroom, and I think it's a collective way of learning that needs to be replicated. So, props to you, dude.
We keep working at night, sliding under the radar.
Hector wants to say some last words, I think.
Hector!
Well, just to join well, I wish to thank all of you to give me the opportunity to share with this process with the group. Yeah. I also am very proud of this process. I come from a department that defines itself as a department of anthropology of public orientation. That means to put the anthropological knowledge at the service of the people, of the communities. I think that your work in different orientation, with different perspectives, with different topics, was all an experience of putting urban design or urban theory at the service of the Ecuador or the Quito people, with different senses, with different degrees, but all with the big learning and figure that it's possible to put to co-produce with them useful knowledge, useful in the sense not of the market, but in the sense of useful to the people struggle to achieve better conditions of living or to resist the capitalist law. So I think I'm very happy, I'm very grateful for you, for your openness and readiness to share with me.
I still say that they'll probably rather ask more than it's communication. And I feel like that's what usually happens.
Thank you, and
Foco.
Yeah, photo time. We're all in the same colors. You have to
before everybody starts moving away, we have, I mean, I'm not sure we can fit all, but I think everybody's invited on the sectors like, no, Miguel, what did you just do? 29 Washington Square West, apartment 14A.
Yeah.
But if you come, you have to bring a bottle of something and hopefully some chips and food or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise you cannot enter, right?